What's up guys, this is Atriox and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat video. So I had an interesting comment on the previous video that I made, basically asking if Liu Kang deserves to be a god. However, I think Liu Kang is much more than just a god. I mean, at one point he was a Titan, then he gave up his Titan powers to become protector of Earthrealm, and then by the end of the story he becomes a Titan again, although he did lose his immortality for reclaiming a power that he gave up. Which is interesting, but you know, I don't really understand how that works. That's the story. But anyways, if you guys haven't already, can you guys do me a favor and leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. If you want to see more dope videos like this, that I just kind of make on a whim. It depends. Like, you know, if I think that the topic is like, you know, interesting enough, I'll make a video about it. But anyways, like, we're just gonna jump back into the video. So let's chop this up. So the question was, did Liu Kang deserve to be a god? To answer that particular question, we need to first understand what Liu Kang's place is inside the story of Mortal Kombat. When you think of Mortal Kombat, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Probably the fatalities, right? The insane amount of gore has definitely made it stand out amongst other fighting games, especially like when you look at like Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, or even Tekken. Mortal Kombat is immediately recognizable to even the most casual fighting game players, and even outside of that, Mortal Kombat has been mentioned in music, and TV, and many other types of media. So let's take a trip back to where it all started, the original Mortal Kombat game that came out in 1992. The general prologue of basically the original Mortal Kombat was the first Shaolin to represent the Order of Light, the great Kung Lao, had defeated the host of the Mortal Kombat tournament, the sorcerer Shang Tsung. Despite Shang Tsung having the advantage of winning 9 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments, the great Kung Lao defeated him and became the new Grand Champion, saving Earthrealm in the process. Very similar to like how Liu Kang got his thing as well. And while it was common for the victor to take his opponent's life, Kung Lao decided to spare him. 50 years later, Shang Tsung, now old man, would return with his new champion, the Shokan Prince Goro. Kung Lao was ultimately defeated by Goro, and his soul was taken by Shang Tsung, an event that would basically lead up to the events of the original game. So, okay, so I kind of want to just discuss like Liu Kang's specific role in each of the games. They kind of just talk about basically his accomplishments throughout the Mortal Kombat series to kind of see if he deserves to become a god. Centuries later, this is basically going to talk about after the original prologue for Mortal Kombat. Centuries later, Kung Lao's descendant and representative of the Shaolin, Liu Kang, picking up where the prologue left off for Mortal Kombat. In the initial game, there was no real mention of Liu Kang being a descendant of the great Kung Lao. I think that it was added much later in the game, so for this particular video, we'll basically keep going with that since, you know, those games are canon. So centuries later, Kung Lao's descendant and new representative of the Shaolin, Liu Kang, would make his first appearance. Liu Kang was raised in the White Lotus Society, training his whole life to compete in the Mortal Kombat tournament. Liu Kang, who would ultimately win the tournament after defeating the previous Grand Champion Goro and the current host of the tournament, Shang Tsung. Earthrealm would once again host the tournament, or that's how it was supposed to go. Enraged at the incompetence of Shang Tsung for losing the tournament yet again, Shao Kahn sends Baraka with a horde of Tarkatans to attack the Shaolin, hoping to goad Raiden and Liu Kang to seek revenge. The plan was a success because when Liu Kang returned, he was furious at the deaths of so many Shaolin monks. Liu Kang reached out to his friend Kung Lao, and together with Raiden, the three would venture to Outworld seeking revenge. Upon reaching Shao Kahn's palace, they were greeted by the Emperor, who proposes a new tournament, a single tournament, which would take place at Outworld and would decide the fate of Earthrealm once and for all. Instead of winning 10 tournaments, there would be one, and if he won that tournament, Earthrealm would finally be Shao Kahn's, and if Raiden's warriors won, he would abandon Earthrealm forever. Though Raiden was initially weary of this gamble, he ultimately accepts Shao Kahn's terms after all. If Earthrealm had won, they would finally be free. Eventually, after many battles with Outworld warriors, Liu Kang would ultimately defeat a younger, but more empowered Shang Tsung, a new Shokan warrior named Kentaro, and then finally Shao Kahn. Funny enough, Kentaro hailed from the lower rank clan of Shokan warriors, but like in the game, he was actually a much harder fight than Goro. Like if you ever played Mortal Kombat 2. But anyways, Liu Kang had did it again. Earthrealm was finally free of the Mad Conqueror. Or it's kind of how it was supposed to go. Shao Kahn immediately goes back in his word, and basically at the start of Mortal Kombat 3, and decides to invade Earthrealm without victory in Mortal Kombat. But Shao Kahn had a wife who took her own life in order to protect Earthrealm from meeting the same fate as Edenia, which prevented Shao Kahn from stepping foot on Earthrealm. Shang Tsung, along with the Shadow Priest, had come up with the plan to have Siddha be reborn and placed under the brainwashing spell on Earthrealm, which shattered the ward. Finally, Shao Kahn would reclaim not only his queen, but finally be able to merge his realm with Earthrealm, being able to finally step foot on Earthrealm after the ward had finally dissipated. Upon completing this dark ritual, he will send out elimination squads to kill anyone who disobeyed him. Liu Kang finds himself the main target of the extermination squads, and with the help of his friends, Liu Kang manages to push back not only Shao Kahn, but his forces as well. But the battle would leave two of Liu Kang's friends dead. Johnny Cage and Kung Lao would end up dying during the invasion. But due to the merge with basically Johnny Cage would not be able to pass onto the heavens as they were a complete mess. So Johnny was able to reclaim his body somehow. That kind of thing was a little hard to understand why that, just because what happened with the heavens, it would stop him. I mean, I get it, but it's just like a little plot so Johnny Cage wouldn't really die, I think. So, Mortal Kombat 4. Shao Kahn had lost multiple occasions trying to claim Earthrealm, and this had to take a toll on his army and all the damage he sustained while fighting Liu Kang. So he would take a break in this game. They would introduce basically a new villain, which would be the fallen elder god, Shinnok, who was banished by the other gods for trying to directly involve himself with mortals. And at that time, mortals were gods and other gods were not allowed to get involved with mortals. So with elder gods and gods, including Raiden, standing against Shinnok, he was basically trapped in Shinnok's amulet. And with Quan Chi reclaiming the amulet, Shinnok had made his appearance for the first time in a long time. Liu Kang would get word that Quan Chi had captured Princess Kitana and traveled to Edenia to rescue her. Through the tournament, Liu Kang and Kitana would begin cultivating feelings for each other, but Quan Chi was in control of Shinnok's amulet. Liu Kang failed and returned to Earthrealm, basically to unite the Earth's champions to not only rescue Princess Kitana, but also help Raiden defeat the mad elder god Shinnok. Liu Kang, with the help of Raiden, who now was no longer constrained by the rules of Mortal Kombat, manages to defeat Shinnok and Quan Chi. Liu Kang thought that Kitana and Edenia was lost because he couldn't find a way to free them before defeating Shinnok.
The war is over. I've once again defended my title as champion of Mortal Kombat and defended the realm of Earth, but I have failed to save the realm of Edenia. In doing so, I have also lost Kitana forever. Kitana?
Yes, Liu Kang. It is I.
But I thought you were gonna
With Shinnok's destruction, you have not only saved the Earth, but you've also saved my own realm. For that, I can never repay you.
Knowing that you survived is all that I need.
As heir to the throne of my realm, I offer you the chance to rule at my side, as King of Edenia, forever.
I cannot accept your offer. I belong here on Earth as champion of Mortal Kombat.
Then, I wish you good luck, Liu Kang, on all your journeys.
Edenia was actually freed with Princess Kitana due to Shinnok being defeated. Kitana finally speaking to Liu Kang, basically she decides to offer him a seat at her throne and basically be the ruler of Edenia alongside her. Due to Liu Kang being the champion of Mortal Kombat, he knew he had to refuse. Now, moving on to Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. So this is the first time Liu Kang isn't the protagonist in the game, because like obviously Liu Kang dies in the prologue of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Basically what happens is that Shang Tsung and Quan Chi strike a deal, and they decide to deal with the two people that could stop them, which was Shao Kahn and Liu Kang. So Liu Kang was dead and Earthrealm champion was gone. Raiden, who had become an elder god at the end of Mortal Kombat 4, would make Fujin the protector in his absence. After seeing the deaths of Liu Kang, Raiden pleaded with his fellow elder gods to interfere, but they would not. Raiden, disgusted by his fellow elder gods in action, he abandoned his role and returned to Earthrealm to go gather more allies to stop the Deadly Alliance. Unfortunately, even with Kung Lao taking Liu Kang's place, it would not be enough. Without Liu Kang, the Deadly Alliance would end up restoring the Dragon King's undefeatable army. The remnants of Earthrealm's champions would ultimately be defeated, leaving Raiden basically the last line of defense for Earthrealm. Okay, So long before Liu Kang had won the Mortal Kombat tournament, Shujinko had begun his quest to retrieve the Kamidogu for who he thought was the Elder God's guide. He was a fool, and Shujinko was manipulated into resurrecting Outworld's former emperor, the Dragon King Onaga. The forces of light have failed to stop the Deadly Alliance from resurrecting the Dragon King's army, and basically against the wishes of the Elder Gods, Raiden alone challenged the Deadly Alliance to Mortal Kombat. Although Raiden seemed to have the upper hand at first and seemed as if he would win, the combined powers of the sorcerers proved to be too much, which I think is kind of dumb because he was dog walking Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, but plot strikes again. The sorcerers would prove to be too much for him, and he was ultimately defeated. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, now having defeated all who could oppose them, began bickering amongst themselves, which would ultimately lead to them facing each other in combat for control of the army. Quan Chi would win, but his victory would be short-lived as the Dragon King would make his return to reclaim what was his, thanks to Shujinko's foolishness. The three would form a new alliance and attack Onaga together, which would ultimately be in vain because their attacks would have no effect on a Kamidogu-empowered Onaga, which would lead to the events of Mortal Kombat Deception. And although Liu Kang had died, he began working with the now reformed Ermac to help free his allies as a spirit medium. I guess it would be like that because obviously with some Ermac he could see ghosts and stuff like that because of the spirits and the magic that's inside of him. Together with Ermac, one by one he would free the Earth's champions, which would be the edge they needed to stop Onaga, as Shujinko would need to absorb these powers of the good guys and the bad guys. They finally defeat Onaga and basically end the Deadly Alliance all in one go because of Shujinko, which honestly is kind of his fault the whole situation started, but it's neither here nor there. Now, in the Unchained version of Mortal Kombat, Kitana's ending would basically be the prequel to how the Armageddon would start.
With the Dragon King destroyed, Kitana made her way home to the realm of Edenia. During her journey, she was met by a being made of fire. He informed Kitana that her premonition of a looming conflict was correct, and that she must unite the forces of good for a coming battle to preserve the realms. Disheartened, Kitana fell to her knees. "When will it end?" she cried. "Every victory leads to more conflict and greater adversaries." Blaze simply replied, "If all goes as planned, your enemies will be destroyed."
Which was she began having dreams of a coming conflict, and her journey home, she would come in contact with the fire being Blaze, and who informed her that she wasn't going mad, and in order to protect the realms, that she needed to gather the forces of light for a massive battle was about to take place. Finally, here we are. This is actually the first mention of Liu Kang taking over as protector of Earthrealm. Liu Kang had been anchored to his zombified body by Nightwolf until a way could be found to return him to the living. Armageddon's story was basically, the mortals had grown too strong and they needed to be dealt with, either by killing them or depowering them. But the important thing to note is that, the only ending that mattered was actually Shao Kahn's. And then the second one, if you want to really worry about, is Liu Kang's, because this is more pertaining to the question was, okay, so basically after Liu Kang had defeated Blaze, he had one more duty. He had to confront his mentor who had been corrupted by his own suicide, and he needed to basically be replaced. Liu Kang reluctantly engaged Raiden in Mortal Kombat, defeating Raiden and becoming Earthrealm's new protector. So basically this task was given by the Elder Gods, and although Liu Kang was against fighting his mentor, he knew that he eventually reluctantly went through with what the Elder Gods had asked him to do. So in the original timeline, Liu Kang never gave up on his responsibilities as Earthrealm's champion. Not even death could really stop him. Kitana, the woman he loved, couldn't even sway him with the promises of becoming king of Edenia. Honestly, I think Liu deserved a much better ending than he got in the original timeline. Being murdered, then forced into servitude, then having his body killed unnecessarily went against everything he stood as a champion. And it was just a really messed up ending for Liu Kang. With the reset of the timeline due to Raiden's interference, we are introduced to a new hot-headed version of Liu Kang. This new incarnation of Liu Kang was vastly different from the previous one. The story more or less played out the same for Liu Kang. in regards to the first 3 games. That is until Raiden's visions of the future would lead to the deaths of almost every Earthrealm champion, as well as Kitana and Jade. Liu Kang at this point was unwilling to listen to Raiden, as Raiden suggests giving up Earthrealm without a fight, and like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, every decision Raiden made throughout the campaign, it just led to more deaths and led to more changes that basically changed the face of Mortal Kombat as we knew it. Liu Kang had enough and faces Raiden in combat. Unfortunately, he would die. Going by his non-canon ending though, they would again tease him becoming protector of Earthrealm.
Having defeated Shao Kahn, Liu Kang believed he was the only one capable of defending Earthrealm against outside threats. During the invasion, Raiden had been more burden than ally. Brazenly, he demanded the Elder Gods grant him the Thunder God status. In a one-match Mortal Kombat tournament, Liu Kang defeated his former friend and mentor. Liu Kang's request was granted. He was made a god, the new protector of Earthrealm.
And his actions in the MK9 story were completely justified in my opinion. Raiden seemed like he was going mad. He was making really bad decisions that were like leading to people dying or history being changed. After all, Liu Kang had been raised to be Earthrealm's champion, and Raiden was trying to stop him from completing his destiny. Liu Kang's fiery spirit and unwillingness to follow Raiden, kind of like, after all, like, if you really think about it at that time, the only reason he didn't follow Raiden towards the end of the story is because every decision Raiden was making was leading to bad outcomes. After all, like, almost every decision he made, like, this led to the deaths of so many of his friends, and even later on, his own deaths. Now, moving on to MKX, Liu Kang had become a revenant. This would be the first time we see Liu Kang take on an antagonistic type of role in Mortal Kombat. Quan Chi's dark magic twisted Earthrealm's greatest protector into its greatest threat. After Quan Chi's death, Liu Kang and Kitana became the new rulers of the Netherrealm. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like them making Liu Kang a bad guy in this game, and him being trapped as a revenant is just as bad as when Raiden enslaved Liu Kang's corpse. He can't seem to catch a break no matter what path Liu Kang stays on. In both the original and the Sega timeline, Liu Kang ultimately ends up being a slave to someone. It's kind of messed up, bro. Okay, so here we are with Mortal Kombat 11. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but in Deception, Jade's and Ermac's endings hinted at an outside force controlling Onaga.
Jade approached a lone figure who stood in the distance, a shimmering woman. She did not reveal her name, but spoke with an air of regal authority. Through the minds of countless mortals, the woman had been watching events as they unfolded over the centuries. She informed Jade that Shao Kahn's death was an outcome that must be reimagined. Jade was defenseless as the woman possessed her body and emerged in the waking world.
Ermac was pleased that his warrior's skills could for once bring about a noble outcome. He sensed, however, that an ominous force still shaped the destiny of the realms. It was everywhere. He could feel its influence on Onaga, though the Dragon King was oblivious to its manipulation. Time was running out. Ermac feared the celebration of this latest victory would be short-lived.
We finally get our answer to who that was. All of the games have led up to this moment. The timelines finally converged as the ominous being who has been manipulating the destinies of all mortals, gods, and elder gods had finally revealed itself. Kronika, a titan obsessed with maintaining balance, had come to hard reset the timeline. Kronika was revealed to be above the elder gods. She was a being who controlled all the destinies of the mortals, gods, and elder gods. And the one being who ultimately she basically created, seeing that she pretty much was above the gods. So this leads you to think that she's the one that created the one being. Obviously, her being the keeper of time and everything like that. Everything it was in the timeline is by her design. If that makes sense. She brings back the long dead champions from both Outworld and Earthrealm to the future, hoping to have them help her reset the timeline. As Raiden's interfered with a lot, maybe she thought maybe she could sway some of the good guys to come over to her side. But she ultimately did that with Jax, but that was pretty much the gist of it in terms of the good guys. The good Liu Kang had returned. This version was much different from the MK9 version, as he didn't lose any of his friends as of yet, and honestly, he was more in line with the first timeline's Liu Kang than the current ones. I've always had a theory that this Liu Kang wasn't the same Liu Kang we got from MK9, as the personality is more in line with the previous timeline than the current one. But that's obviously been debunked in MK1, with Liu Kang talking to Kitana about the courtyard scene. Liu Kang and Raiden pretty much go down almost the exact same path, that is until after their fight. Now I'm gonna be honest, just to back up a little bit with the whole Liu Kang talking to Kitana, that could actually may not be as debunked as I initially said, but just because, like, you know, they did get taken out of the timeline right before everyone had died, so maybe it could still be something there, but who knows. That's just me kind of like trying to insert my own theory into this whole situation with Kitana and Liu Kang. But anyways, after the fight with Raiden and Liu Kang, the fight triggers memories from previous timelines within Raiden, where Liu Kang dies in every single one. But
if you must die, so be it.
This has happened before. Liu Kang, do not interfere. You cannot fight Shao Kahn. Liu Kang, stop!
Enough of your madness! If you must die, so be it!
Raiden finally awakens to see the pattern that in order for this timeline to be different, Raiden and Liu Kang must work together in order to defeat Kronika, which means that he has to go and basically find a way to save the Revenant Liu Kang. After all, Kronika was afraid of Liu Kang and Raiden working together, so she ends up abducting Liu Kang during the period where Raiden finally figures out what's going on with the timeline. And the whole thing is to save Liu Kang at this point, because as they're making their way to basically where Kronika's keep is, Revenant Liu Kang ends up stealing his own soul and engages in combat with Raiden. This actually works out for Raiden, though, if I'm being honest, as he would have full access to both Liu Kang and Revenant Liu Kang due to Revenant Liu Kang stealing his own soul. So he's able to trace where Liu Kang's at and ultimately combines all three of them into like one being, whereas Raiden's now combined into the soul of both Liu Kangs, the Revenant and the regular one.
I have conquered the darkness within me. You must do the same.
You will have to kill me.
I would rather save you.
and I am not.
What happened to Raiden?
He is part of me, bound to my soul. He made me a god. For now, at least.
A god? Incredible.
Now he's out of her league.
My revenant counterpart. I have absorbed his knowledge of the keep, of Kronika's plan. I know where to find the hourglass. We can beat Kronika.
As hard as I am with the overall story in the previous games, I'm gonna be honest, Mortal Kombat 11 story just made me emotional as hell, especially at the deaths of Sonya and Scorpion, two of my favorite characters in the series. But when Liu Kang finally became a god after it's been hinted at multiple times in both timelines, it was actually pretty awesome, I'm not gonna lie, especially when he starts showing off his power and the scene where Raiden is instructing him to use his Jinsei.
Earthrealm's Jinsei flows within you. Let it fuel your fire.
Was pretty awesome, especially when you see like Cassie looking up at above where she's just seeing what the real chosen one looks like, you know what I mean? Like, sorry, I had to throw that jab in there. But anyways, I thought that part was pretty cool. Especially, and then like when you go back to the part where Raiden's kind of instructing him how to use the Jinsei to like basically, you know, let the Jinsei fuel the fire of Liu Kang. Like that was actually pretty cool. It was like one of those Master Sensei type of moments. And I feel like we get that so few in Mortal Kombat between Raiden and Liu Kang. But you know, it is what it is. Anyways, with the defeat of both Kronika and also the crown empowered Shang Tsung, Liu Kang becomes the new Keeper of Time. And alongside with the newly created Garrus, begins shaping the timeline. And honestly, like I'm not gonna talk too much about Mortal Kombat 1's Liu Kang because obviously he falls more in the protected line. There's nothing really there, and he's already a god at this point. So there's nothing really there that says he should he have been a god. I mean, I guess he could talk about like his actions. I just feel like all of his actions have been like complete opposite of what Raiden did, and like a lot of his things was he just tried to protect the timeline. So anyways, we're not really gonna look too deep into Mortal Kombat 1 unless you guys want me to make something separate there where like it kind of talks about a little bit of like the actions he's done from the original story up to the Chaos Ranks. It's up to you guys though if you guys want to see something like that. The Liu Kang in the MK11 was the version of Liu Kang I always wanted to see. Now, to be honest, like I thought this version of Liu Kang was probably the best, even from like the first timeline. He was like the perfect Shaolin. He was patient, he was noble, he didn't jump to conclusions, he thought things through, he was intelligent, and he was knowledgeable. He was how I imagined a champion of Mortal Kombat should act and behave, especially, you know, him being a Shaolin. And even when they found out how him and Kung Lao was gonna die, instead of being mad about it, he decided to try and change his fate rather than blame Raiden. Honestly, he even helped Kung Lao relax and just like go with the flow and say, hey, this isn't set in stone yet, we can change this. We gotta work together to be able to do that with Lord Raiden. I really like that aspect of Liu Kang's character in Mortal Kombat 11. So the question was, Did Liu Kang deserve to become a god? While Liu Kang surely isn't perfect, as we see in the Mortal Kombat 9 version of him, Liu Kang always acted in the good of Earthrealm, sometimes even outside of Earthrealm. But to be honest, that kind of stuff was mainly for Kitana. And I mean, I would go and save her too if that was me. So I totally get Liu Kang doing this for her specifically. Death couldn't stop him. He even worked through somebody to be able to handle his obligations to Earthrealm, even though he was no longer the champion as he had been killed. Like, and then if we can even go further than that. Like, Kitana even tried to nab him from Earthrealm, offering to make him a king, and that still wasn't enough. Denying to be a king of a realm to fulfill your duties, that's like the ultimate thing that to me just shows how important being the champion of Mortal Kombat was to him and how serious he took his responsibilities. Now I ask you guys in the comments, if it's not Liu, then who would you pick? Who is worthy enough to become a god and a titan in his stead? I think Liu Kang was not just worthy to be a god, but I really think he was the only choice. Like, Kung Lao is like one of my favorite characters in Mortal Kombat. He's like probably 2B for me, because like Liu Kang will always be, in terms of the story mode, Liu Kang will always be my favorite character in terms of story. But if we're talking about like fighting wise, it's Kung Lao. But in terms of like the actual story of Mortal Kombat, like Liu Kang's always been my favorite character in the series. So like, you know, making this video and just kind of talking about his achievements and stuff like that, especially when he died, and then like even the parts where he was enslaved to another either a sorcerer or to the corrupted thunder god. Like, I feel like he's gone through a lot of crap, and I think he's earned his just rewards by dealing with all the shit he had to deal with Raiden, like kind of always being off the rocker. Because if you look at Raiden in both timelines, Raiden becomes corrupted in both timelines. So like he's a leader that's supposed to be teaching him how to do everything. It's kind of just going off the deep end, you know what I mean? But anyways, like there is one more thing I do want to talk about. This may be a bit off topic, but you know, one thing that's always kind of bothered me about Mortal Kombat 1 is the fact that Kitana and Liu Kang have zero, and I mean zero, chemistry whatsoever. If we just sit there and think about it, you would at least think that he would be flustered or say something that happened in the previous timeline, kind of like what happened with Kenshi, you know what I mean? Like when Kenshi got blinded and he was like, oh, he got blinded differently this timeline.
Johnny, Kenshi, Kung Lao, you have safely returned. By the Elder Gods.
We had a run-in with Princess Melina's inner demons. She took my sight, but Sento, in its own way, restored it.
I am glad that Sento bonded with you. Though my hope was that the means would be different this time.
This time?
Forgive me, Kenshi. I misspoke. Go. The monks will tend to your wounds.
I'm sorry. Meet the newest members of the Earthrealm players. We wouldn't have made it back without them.
Astra and Syzos.
You know us?
As Earthrealm's protector, there is much I know.
Do you also know of my former master, Quan Chi? He colludes with Shang Tsung.
A new deadly alliance? Come, all of you. You must tell me all you know.
This time around. And then like Kenshi says something like, what? He's like, you would think something like that would happen, but there's just nothing there, like at all. And like, I know there's been hints that Kitana being the focus in the next DLC, especially with that new power that like they kind of was talking about. And if that's the case, I want to see something like that happen in the story, because it just feels weird that this version of Kitana and Liu Kang just seem like strangers to me. And like, you could even do it in a flashback. Like, I would be perfectly fine if it was a flashback type thing, if they want to do something like that. And I know, they have the scene with Titan Kitana and him.
The battle for Kronika's hourglass ripped apart time's fabric. Where there once was one timeline, there are now many. Each new timeline represents a different possible outcome of that battle. In mine, I became Time's Keeper. In yours, it was you. In others, it could be Jade, Sindel, even Kano. The possibilities are endless.
If many timelines sprung from one, and we were both part of it, then you are my Liu Kang.
The same one who battled you in Shang Tsung's courtyard, who fought at your side at the Colosseum, who beamed with pride
when you became Outworld's Khan.
Why does fate seem always to conspire against us? To deny us life's simple pleasures?
I don't know. Perhaps in one of the many timelines, they are ours.
I would like to think you brought me here for them. But I know you well enough to know better. What duty beckons us?
I will tell you. But first, we must gather more of our old friends.
I just want to hear everybody else's opinions on it, because I thought this was an interesting kind of topic that, you know, that was brought up in the comment section. But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Sorry this video took so long to put together, but I've been working 6 days, like, at my job, like, for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So it's been kind of hard to just get there to the editing section, and you know, it's just been really difficult to do it all. So this one took a little bit longer than I wanted it to. But you know, the next video we're gonna be talking about why the newer versions of these characters are weaker than the previous timeline versions, and why the story of Mortal Kombat 1 is kind of like, it's kind of weaker compared to Mortal Kombat 11 and back, because of how depowered these characters seem in the game. And that's just something I kind of want to talk about, because somebody didn't mention that in the comments for the previous video, and I kind of wanted to talk about that as well, but that's going to be a video for another time. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm out. Peace.
Please fill my cup. Am I really asking for much? It's been a long week, I'm looking for fun. Please fill my cup. Find me under the sun. SOS, I'm just looking for a good time. Whoa.